Discover your inner goddess and live up to your highest value and most abundant potential. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses, a podcast that empowers you to unleash your inner goddess and take the leap of faith to live your best life. Your guide, Pulver, joins her fellow goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Pulver.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses. Whether you're listening to the podcast or watching the YouTube or reading our blog, we're so grateful that you are here. And I'm going to just read you a quote from our guest's website. So, wellness is the realization that everything we do, think, feel, and believe has an effect on our state of well-being. And this was quoted by Greg Anderson. And when I read this, I started to think about my own Grateful Goddess journey, and how back in 2009, I was in a place of searching and wanting more, and I wasn't quite sure what it was. And from then to now, how much I've realized how much I've really grown and opened up to so many different rituals and different practices, and how it's really enriched my life. And whether you're out there and you're thinking, this isn't for me, what you're going to talk about today, or, oh my God, I'm so open to this. It's okay. Whatever journey you're on, what I feel is important to do is, just like this quote says, about keeping well and keeping, a very good positive attitude. It's really what we think, feel, and believe, because if we start to open up to so many different avenues in our life, it just adds so much richness. And why not? It's fun, right? It's fun to kind of just see what things are about. So that is why I am so glad to introduce our guest. Tanys is a registered Reiki Master, Aqualead Master, Crystal Master, and spiritual practitioner. She is a member of the International Association of Reiki Professionals and the Reiki Healing Association. She feels that life is full of opportunities to help and care for one another, and is so pleased to have found a way to do this with the Twillo lifestyle community. After spending over 20 years in home health care, Tanys embarked on this mission of helping others through her spiritual and energy healing practices. Tanys has a Bachelor of Social Science and is also a certified human resource professional with a certificate in human resources and a certificate in applied management. Welcome, Tanys, to Grateful Goddesses. Alysha's here as well as a featured goddess, and I'm so grateful that she's here. She has her own podcast called That's Myronuk. And Tanys, so you have so many hats that you wear, you in your Twillo lifestyle community, but let's talk about you from the beginning. What was your passion when you first started out?
In terms of my spiritual journey, I assume, or life?
You tell me.
Okay. I would say overall, really about helping people. That's been my focus pretty much my whole life. I was in home health care when I first started, spent 20 years in home health care, working through, started in the field and ended up in management. And so really that part was all about helping people as well. And then went through a time where I started taking Reiki classes, and really worked through the classes very slowly, because I had a lot going on in my own life as well, doing management. I was involved in local theater and taking HR management classes and all of it at the same time. And so when I was at that period of my life, it was very stressful. So I went and had my first Reiki session, and I had never felt so good. I was like, I need to learn how to do that. So I started taking the classes, and that just opened up a whole new world for me. And I came to a point in my life where I had to make a decision about what I was doing wasn't working in terms of career. It became very political when I got up into the management stuff, and I'm an empath. And so, dealing with the sometimes toxic environments that you end up in was challenging for me at that point. So I was faced with making a change and I then started my businesses. So I actually say businesses because I actually am an HR consultant as well. So I have my own consultancy firm. And then I started Twillo Lifestyle Community because I wanted people to have a place with a variety of practitioners. So that's my goal. And at the time when I started, it was just me, and I now have 2 other practitioners working with me as well, and we do like cross referral and stuff like that. And all kind of in that spiritual realm, in terms of, well, I shouldn't say that, it's energy realm, really, more than just spiritual. My journey has taken both, and so I have kind of a variety of stuff that I do. I'm a Reiki Master and teacher. I do Aqualead, which is an energy healing that heals the water in the body. And I also do crystal healing, so a bit of a crystal addict. And then I'm also a Celtic shamanic high priestess. You've got your crystals.
Yeah, I just grab whatever I feel like. I have a box of gems. Today I grabbed rose quartz, and I'm not sure, obsidian maybe?
It could be black tourmaline. Is
Black
it really?
It's black. It is black tourmaline.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. And I'm just holding it. I don't know why. I feel good holding them.
Well, black tourmaline's very grounding. So
yeah, I just reached for it. There's red jasper in here. There's so many others, but I didn't feel like I needed those. So anyway, so it's interesting with your journey and what you do. Like when you started out and you said, well, which one do you want me to talk about? They're interconnected.
Oh yeah, for sure. I just wasn't sure how far you wanted me to go back, but they're definitely interconnected.
Right. Like when you were a little girl, well, when you were growing up, and you said you're an empath, were those, because a lot of empaths we talk to, they do say that when they were younger, people thought they were crazy, or they would think they were crazy, or like they weren't quite sure where they fit in the world. So tell us about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember growing up, people telling me I was over emotional, that you don't quite fit in with everybody. I was always kind of an outsider, got bullied, those kinds of things, right? Because I didn't different at the time. I just, was like, okay. I tended to have, in school, I would say I tended to have like 1 or 2 close friends until high school. And then high school, I sort of, came out of my shell a little bit more, found more of my soul tribe with a group at a community center near us. And things sort of opened up in terms of me being less shy and self-conscious at that point.
Right.
But I didn't realize, so we haven't talked about this yet, but I'm intuitive as well. And I didn't realize that I was intuitive at that point. Although when I look back at it, I just didn't know that that's what it was. So, I can remember sitting in class and I'm supposed to be focusing on math. And I'm like, and this horse, I see a picture of a horse in my head. I'm like, why am I thinking about that? I should be thinking about this. So it's, I feel that there's a lot of people that get diagnosed with like ADHD and stuff that are probably quite intuitive as well. And that.
So you're saying that the horse that you envisioned was probably someone near you that you were picking up.
Yeah, it was a message of some kind, right?
Yes.
That there was something about the horse that I needed to know at that moment.
Right.
And the guides were sharing it with me,
right.
But I wasn't aware that that's what was happening.
Right. It was a Myrony, as Alysha says.
That's right. A Myrony.
A Myrony. If you've listened, our viewers and listeners out there, to Alysha, her podcast, That's Myrony, she talks a lot about serendipitous events and taking action. And Alysha, you also are intuitive. So you share this with Tanys.
It's that whole thing of like when your gut, your heart, your soul is telling you something, listen to it. Really, really, truly listen to it. And there's so many, we all have these gifts. It's just whether or not we tap into them. And Karen, you're tapping into them more and more and more.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I feel like the floodgates have opened, and that's what I want people to understand. It's not that like how do I say this? I'm not like taking on all of these dogmas. I don't know the right word. Philosophies, beliefs.
Thought systems.
Yeah.
Thought systems. It's not like I'm saying, oh yes, but I'm opening up, just like I always say, wine tasting, it tastes good. I think I will add that into my life, because for me, each day I am now picking up so much on all the Myronies that happen. And I'm also, which I do want to get into, Tanys, we talked about past lives. And some people, when I tell them about the session I had with you, honestly, they like, that's crazy. They're like, that's crazy. a family member, well, my sister, I was telling her about it, and I said, don't you want to find out about your past lives? And she said, no, my life today is too much to handle. So why would I want to know about my lives in the past? So what do you say to people that are out there listening and saying, this is crazy? Like, I'm just not open to this. It's too much thought. I just want to be in this life now and deal with things moving forward on a more so-called practical level.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the 3D view of our lives, and that's totally fine. Like, everybody's in their own space on this journey, and we all have different roles, different missions to play along the journey. And so it's not for everybody to focus on the same things that I'm focusing on. When people come and talk to me about it in that way, I usually refer them more to the energetic perspective of things. Okay, because there's two ways to look at what I do. One is energy. We are all energy. This is science. The earth vibrates. We vibrate because we're on the earth. The earth has a baseline of 7.8 hertz. It's on the Schumann resonance scale. Even NASA tracks this live. So when we look at that, we vibrate. So when you vibrate, you create an electromagnetic field around you, right? So this is what people refer to as the aura. So this electromagnetic field creates what's called the energy system. The energy runs through our bodies in a system that's much like the circulatory system, but it's the energy system. So we have chakras that go right down the center of our system, right? We have 7 main ones, and we have a bunch of transpersonal ones as well. And what those do, they act like the heart of the circulatory system. They're vortexes of energy that actually run the energy through the body. The meridians that you hear talk of are much like the veins of the energy system. They run the energy from the central channel all the way out to all the other parts of the body. So when I'm talking about energy, I'm talking about life force energy. So this is the same thing that's run with when you hear about Tai Chi or Qigong, or prana in yoga. It's life force energy. It is that energy that creates us, matter, everything. So that is what the whole practice is based on. So you're running energy through the chakra system to create that free-flowing energy. So we also get dense pockets stuck in this energy field that's around us. Okay, so your aura actually has layers to it. And so if you do this, try this, guys. Put your hand down until you feel a little bit of resistance. It'll feel almost like a little jelly. Do you feel that?
Yes. I've also, when you do this and rub your hands and then you go like this, when I was younger, I used to do that. And you feel that resistance.
That is
I feel the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this part here, from here to about here, this is actually, it actually goes all the way through, but you'll feel it out there. It's like a jelly blueprint that creates our body, because our body is energy. And so that jelly blueprint is what creates the shape that we're in. And if you look at scarring, for instance, right? What creates the scar and leaves it there? Because our cells are rejuvenating, right? So why would we still have a scar if all the cells are replaced? It's because the jelly blueprint has the scar in it. And so it's just filling it up all the time. The cells just reproduce and fill in that jelly blueprint, which creates how our body is formed. So that's why we have scars after things, because the jelly blueprint is damaged. So that jelly blueprint is your etheric layer of energy. It's the more physical, and it feels a bit spongy or a bit jelly feeling. Then we have a layer that goes out about as far as where your hand is if you have your arms outstretched. And that has actually inner layers as well. But the main part of that, the main focus of that is your mental, emotional body. And that part actually deals with the emotional well-being, okay? Then you have another layer that actually goes out about 500 feet. And that's like your spiritual layer or your connectedness layer. So we get dense pockets stuck in those layers. And if we get dense pockets stuck in the different layers, we end up with different types of symptoms, shall we say. So if you get a dense pocket stuck here in the layer about there, you probably end up with some physical pain in your wrist. If you get a dense pocket like stuck here, for instance, you might have some anxiety, some emotional distress that's happening. And if you can clear that, it helps the energy run clearer. If you get a dense pocket stuck in that spiritual layer, you can feel like disconnected, like not able to connect with people as well. You don't feel connected to source or universe or that life force energy that comes down. So basically what a Reiki master will do, or Reiki practitioner, will go in and remove those pockets of dense energy, right? You can also have dense energy stuck in those meridians throughout the body, which, as we know with the circulatory system, if you have dense pockets stuck in your veins, you're not getting good circulation through your body. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with the energy. That is very similar and helps to piggyback onto the concepts between energy and that spiritual side of things. So the energy itself is quite scientific. And so what happens is you bring in that dense energy, or you bring in the light energy, which is very high vibration energy, and it really just dissipates those denser pockets that are lower vibration.
Yeah, and I think everyone can say that they feel people's energies. When you're in a room and someone walks in that's, so-called draining, they're draining your positive energy somehow. I'm not sure how, maybe you can help explain. But at the same time, I've run into people that are, so warm, and you can just you want to spend all day with them because they've got such a positive aura or energy. So is that what you're discussing? Is that what you're saying, that how do we pick up on those types of people?
Yeah, that is more or less what I'm talking about. So we all vibrate, and usually as healthy humans, we vibrate between 63 and 75 megahertz in general. And when we have a negative thought, it brings it down by 12. We have a positive one, it brings it up by 10. So what we do and what we think and feel affects our energy. So to put that into context, the reason we want to keep the vibration up is if we're down around the 50s on a consistent basis. I mean, we all do this all day, right? Mm-hmm. But if we're consistently in the 50s, that's when you start to feel run down, you start to get colds and flus and stuff like that.
Right. Okay? That's what you said, the body you start having symptoms, you start having dis-ease.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then if you're down in the 40s and stuff for consistent long periods of time, that's where you're more susceptible to things like Epstein-Barr and cancer and those kinds of things.
Okay, so I have to say this. When I had my cancer diagnosis out of nowhere, I actually was feeling very positive and great in my life. Mm-hmm. I felt stress-free. I mean, similar to what every mother has, raising their kids, nothing out of the ordinary. I was in really good physical shape. But I remember when I got it and looking up different sources of spiritually why I had it, and I couldn't explain why.
Mm-hmm. So I think the other thing to think about, there's other components in that, right? Okay. It's not just about your energy, because you notice I said you're more susceptible. It doesn't mean you're going to. Because there's also the physical component,
right,
and the mental emotional component. And really, if you look at those charts, with the 3 circles and that center piece where they all intersect, that's where we are. So when we have something, we have to look at not just the energetic or the spiritual aspect, we also have to look at the physical aspect, and we also have to look at that mental emotional aspect, because that's where you find the sweet spot when you're actually looking at all 3. So I'm not one of those practitioners that thinks that everything is energy, everything is based in energy. There is a component of all of those things.
Right.
Involved.
Right.
So it just opens you up to it.
Exactly. Alysha, what would you like to ask?
Well, I just want to also bring in the concept of maybe our higher selves, sometimes the challenges we go through. So we may be in great physical health, but because Karen, if you hadn't had this experience, would you be on this journey now? So that's one of the questions, and I think Tanys, you may agree with me on that, is that when those things that we can't explain, from the place of dis-ease or, things along that line, is okay, maybe we actually are just, we wanted to go down a different path in another way, so it would open another door of understanding. So, and My big thing, Tanys, is I really want to get into the Aqualead side so the listeners get to hear that, because
I've never heard of that before. I thought when I read it, like you're in a swimming pool.
No, so energy has different qualities depending on what you're channeling. And so Reiki, people often describe it as feeling very warm and like a warm hug, kind of when they're having a Reiki session. If you have Aqualead, it's really great for inflammation. So I use it if someone's got arthritis and stuff like that. I use it a lot for that stuff. It's great for all of those things, but arthritis, I find any of that inflammation stuff. So, and people describe that as feeling like there's waves coming over their body when they're on the bed. So Reiki's done usually on a bed, similar to what I have back here. And the person's laying down fully clothed and everything. And I can either be touching or not, doesn't matter. And the Aqualead is the same. It's just a quality of energy that I'm bringing down through. So as I bring that life force energy down, basically it can program it to actually be a certain type of energy. And so that's the difference between the Reiki energy and the Aqualead. I also have another modality that I teach that is called Nukti, and it is grief relief, basically, is sort of the human name for it. And it is very much about healing the grief or trauma at a cellular level. So we have fluid, right, the cytoplasm that's in our cells, that actually gets programmed with grief energy. And that grief energy can be reprogrammed, and that's what this other Nukti does as well, is it reprograms that grief energy. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the Masaru Emoto study, the water study.
Yes.
Have you guys heard of that?
No.
Fascinating.
It is. This was a groundbreaking study for this kind of work, because it actually showed the effect of intention or energy on programming water. What he did, he's a Japanese scientist, and what he did was he took a big sample from a polluted dam in Japan, and he took half and he just froze it. The other half he took and had it prayed over by some monks. He then froze that, keeping in mind this is the same water from the same place, the same sample, okay? He then looked at them under a microscope to see whether there was a change. The one that had no prayer was like a globular structure. So if you look it up, you'll see lots of pictures on the internet about it. It was like a very globular structure. There's no order to the structure of the molecules. The other one was a beautiful snowflake.
Wow.
And the only difference
was
was the prayer that was put into it.
That's the same with plants, I notice.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of interesting experience with houseplants, and I saw something similar to that about talking to your plants and caring and not just watering and walking away. And I do that now. I'm like, oh, good morning, and oh, you look beautiful. I mean, yes, someone would think I'm nuts, but I'm talking to why not? It's life, and I'm talking to life. And we've had a plant for almost 30 years because I think I'm just really sweet and kind to it.
Well, if you're looking at the dimensional frequencies and sort of where life sits on that, so crystals are actually first dimensional beings. They have their own consciousness. You'll notice that if you pick up two crystals and you hold them for the same amount of time.
Yes, I'm doing that now.
One will get hot and the other one will not.
Okay,
Or they will be different temperatures. You need both of those, so pick up one of the other ones.
Oh.
Pick up the other ones and see how it goes.
Okay, I will do that.
Because you've also been holding those for a minute.
Yep.
Okay, so if you hold those, one might get warm and the other one won't. And that's because the warm one is like, oh, she needs that energy today. Okay, I'm going to activate. And so it gets warm and starts to vibrate, where the other one is like, nah, she doesn't need me really, so I'm just going to sit here, right? So they have like this consciousness to them.
It's so cool to me. If you're listening, you're like, oh, I don't want that. I don't understand that. Just try it. You never know. Like I've been told too with crystals, like sometimes I'll put them in my pocket. You and I talked, I put them in my bra, I'll wear them on jewelry, and I'll go about my day. And at the end of the day, I'll be like, oh, that wasn't so hard. Like in terms of dealing with someone or dealing with a situation. And I'll realize, oh, I had the crystal in my pocket. It was kind of like a little sidekick helping me out, and it's just interesting. Why not try it? I find it very, very cool. And also what I wanted to say to circle back to for me with cancer. Yes, Alysha, I totally agree that, and by the way, this one's getting warmer on my right hand as I'm talking to you. I'll open up my hand in a minute to tell you what it is. I had done Grateful Goddess gatherings for 3 years before the cancer started. And then when I was going through treatment and dealing with telling my family and friends, I had my goddess toolbox. I was able to open up and say, oh, I've done meditation. I've learned about healthy eating. I've learned about dealing with toxic people. So all of those 3 years of goddess events help prepare me for that. And so we never know in life what it is that we're going to face. So all of these lessons and on our journey help us to prepare us for those events. And had I not had all that, I think it would have been a lot more difficult. And now looking back, I can share with people, add this breath work into your life. Because I had to sit very, very still when I was having the radiation. And then they'd have to like come in and say, no, you moved. And I'm like, I didn't move. But then I learned to breathe and just kind of be and think of beautiful thoughts. And it was over. So I think that all of these, breath work and meditation and stone energy, it's just all interrelated and helps. I wanted to talk to you about your work on Zoom, because it's so interesting. We had a beautiful session and you were able to help me in so many different ways, especially with the energies in my home. How are you able to do that? I mean, through Zoom, you kind of closed your eyes and you felt that there were some different energies in my home that needed to leave. Can you explain that process and how you felt that?
Mm-hmm. So basically, when you get into consciousness, basically there is no time or space, really. It's really a man-made concept, time and space. So what happens for me visually in my third eye, basically what I do is I take a piece of my consciousness and I just put it there. So it's kind of like astral travel, but I'm only doing a piece of it. So with astral travel, you're totally leaving your body and you're going elsewhere, which, by the way, we all do at night. That's what dreams are. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them are. We're doing astral travel at night. So it's not that foreign for people. We just don't call it that. So and have you guys had those experiences at night where you wake up and it's like a big shock?
All the
That's
time.
a tough re-entry into your body.
Is that what it is when you feel like you've fallen and like you just like,
yes.
Oh my goodness. I've always wondered what the heck.
Okay, this is getting really warm.
There you go.
It's green.
It's green? Moss agate?
I don't know.
I thought it moss agate.
Okay.
Oh, maybe it could be emerald. Could be an emerald.
Sure.
But green anyway is about heart chakra.
Okay. And I'm wearing green today.
So that's about healing the heart.
That is so cool, Tanys. I've had that too, Alysha. Like you're like, oh, and you wake up and usually I punch my husband accidentally when that happens.
Yeah. So that's because you've been out of your body. And when the soul comes back into the body or your energy comes back into your body, usually we do it gracefully, but sometimes we're not so graceful. And it comes out like a big.
So you sent part of your energy to my home, and I had sensed something by my front door for years. Just a negative energy. And then you sensed it as well. Mm-hmm. And then you directed it to leave. How did you do that?
Well, because that's on a different vibrational frequency, right? So if you talk about frequencies, basically I'm sending my frequency there, and then I'm just directing that frequency to leave. Because if you think of everything as energy, that's what it is. It's energy.
Yes. So what did you feel when you did that? Did you all of a sudden feel like there's a soul there? There's a person who had passed away? Do you remember? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, because a lot of my sessions I'm doing what's called mediated channeling.
Okay.
And so I'm getting a lot of messaging as we go. That's usually what I ask for, is please help me to say exactly what needs to be said.
And you said something and then it could have been psychological, but I'm going to be open to it. It felt like that it was a stagnant energy that had been there for so long left. And you said, this is a tricky one because it didn't want to leave.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think, so I'm also a medium, and part of my mission here, if you want to talk in that spiritual terms, is to cross over spirits.
Yes.
So I often get them coming and they're hanging around until I realize they're hanging around. And then I have to like cross them over. I send them into a pillar of light. I call in the angels and have them escort them so that they're not alone, and I cross them over.
That's exactly what you did. You called in angels because this was a very stubborn spirit.
Yeah.
I think it was a little boy spirit, and maybe he was scared, or he was sort of, what was so interesting was every time we had company over, I was telling you that I think it's this energy because things would break every single time, like our ice maker broke, or garbage disposal, stuff like that. The lights would flicker, and it was almost as if a little kid was like laughing, playing tricks on us. And I would always say to my guests, "Oh, it's the spirit," and they would be like, "Oh, come on, it's just your fridge is broken." I'm like, "No, it'll start working tomorrow. You'll see." And it would.
And that is, now that you're talking about that, I'm remembering the energy.
Yeah.
It was very much a playful, and he was the reason, the stubbornness. You know, when a kid does this,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to go. That was what he was doing. When I said he was being a little bit stubborn, right? He liked playing at your house. He liked playing with the family, and because it was fun. It was
Right.
fun for him. And so there was fear there for him too, because he didn't know what was coming. But he also just liked playing. So
Yeah,
once he realized what was happening, he was okay after the angels came and sort of took him along. He was fine. He crossed over.
And I just felt a lightness. I felt that after a few days, it was kind of like one of those things where you change something in your life, in your body, and then you take it for granted later that it's actually been changed. Like, I didn't actually realize that it had gone, but I realized that things were kind of running more smoothly in my home. And then I was like, oh yeah, Tanys removed that energy.
Yeah.
Alysha, have you ever experienced anything like that?
It was funny. I actually helped release a spirit one time. There was this experience in my old place where it was such a cold, like in my bedroom, it was so ice cold, and my cats would freak out and all this. And I had a friend who was a medium, and this was when I was first tapping into my father's energy, and I was discovering that I had mediumship abilities. And she's like, yeah, you definitely have something here. And I actually, with another person who was on the phone with me, felt it too. Things started rattling, shaking, pipes. I mean, it was crazy what was going on. And then all of a sudden, I was like, poof, gone. And from that moment on, that coldness was gone. And yeah, whatever was trapped there was. And from what I understand, Tana, sometimes those energies get trapped because it's almost like they want to. There's a story that they want to have somehow come out before. So a lot of energy, like if it was due to a tragic death or something like that, that's when those energies can really get stuck. But yeah, no, I know exactly.
So
I know exactly what that is.
do we all have that ability to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone who's listening out there is feeling a negative energy in their home or in their space or in their workspace, how can they use this technique? What can they do?
So I do have specialized training in some of this. So there are a lot that we can do on our own, but there are some that you do need somebody to come in and help with.
Okay.
Because the ones that are a little more stubborn,
Yes,
don't go easily, then you want to make sure that you're like, there's psychic protection that needs to happen, and there's magic circles and the ritual part of things that need to happen. So that's where someone like me would come in and do that.
Because I had told you that I saged my house, and because someone told me, tell the spirit to go to the light, and I had done that. I'd walked around and said, go to the light, and I opened the windows, but yet it still stayed here. So I understand that. So I guess a person listening, if you're still feeling that, then it's time to call in the big guns. And that's something that you would do to help, which I highly recommend. And not only that, you talked with my husband about the pain in his body. You were able to, without him even telling you, focus in on his lower back, which he's kind of hip area, which he's been having difficulty with. And you said some things to him. And it was funny because a few days later, same kind of thing. I said, how's your back? And he said, oh, it's been good. I didn't even think about that. That's kind of like, when you get a tooth pulled or something changed, and then you kind of get used to it and you forget that it's even been changed, but everything's better. That's kind of how he was. So how are you able to do that? Same technique?
Yeah, in terms of doing the healing aspect, yes.
Yes.
So I guess the other piece to that is that I'm also a physical empath.
See, you've got a gazillion hats here.
Yeah. Well, the physical empath and the empath is like the same ability. It's clairsentience. So it's clear feeling. Okay.
Got it.
So it can be clear feeling as in physical sensation. And so early on in my practice in Reiki, I realized that I was a physical empath, because I had this guy coming in and we were trying to get a handle on his pain. And every time, and he was into sports, he was an older man and had, done all the sports injury things. And so he would come in and he wouldn't tell me what was wrong. And I'd get him on the table and I'd be just doing my Reiki. And I'd all of a sudden be like, oh my goodness, my shoulder is so sore while I was doing the Reiki. And then at the end of the session I ended, it was fine. And he would say, oh, my shoulder feels so much better. And I was like, so I called my Reiki master. I'm like, okay, what's going on? She said, well, you're a physical empath. So what happens is that I can often feel somebody else's, the pain that's in their body. I often will feel it in my own, so that I know where to direct that energy. And so that's what happened with your husband when I tune in. So I also want to say there's an ethics behind doing this stuff.
Yes.
So I want to emphasize that. I don't ever tune into somebody's energy, or at least not purposefully. I don't ever purposely tune into anybody's energy.
If they don't allow it.
If I have not asked permission.
Yes.
Always. So that's a big thing for
right.
me.
So if I'm talking to you about a friend and this, the other, you need to say, well, I need to get permission from that friend if you want to know more.
That's right. That's right. The guides will take care of it, and they'll often tell me.
And also, you're not a medical doctor, and you did say to my husband, this is what I'm sensing, this is what I'm helping to remove this pain, but you really should still go to a doctor.
Yes, exactly. Because that's that three-prong approach that I talk about.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Makes sense.
And we also talked about the Haponopono.
Let's talk about that. Alysha, do you know about the Haponopono?
I do, but not greatly. So please, yes, elaborate on
the most beautiful experience that I've had. And you recently, I still haven't done it on the cancer, but I'm going to today. And please explain.
So I found the Haponopono quite early in my journey. I actually, it's funny because I learned it at a spiritual circle and then didn't use it or anything. And then I was sitting on my bed one night meditating. So this is where past lives come in. This is a good story for both of those things. I had always felt like I had blocked something for myself, like there was something that I wasn't remembering. Anyway, so I sit down on my bed and I just intuitively picked up these two crystals, not knowing what they were for. As it turned out, I was picking up celestite in my receiving hand, which is my left hand, which was asking to receive angelic assistance. That's what celestite, the metaphysical properties are. In my right hand, my releasing hand I had dumeteorite, which was about past lives. And so basically, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was asking for angelic assistance to release past lives. So at the time, I just grabbed them, sat down, and started meditating. As I was meditating, I was seeing, because I'm clairvoyant, so I was seeing a movie playing in my head, in what people refer to as your third eye. And this movie was a little bit, so this is a little bit graphic. I'll try and keep it. I was being held down on an old wooden table. It was like medieval times, okay, by 4 men. And, being raped by a 5th man. And I just intuitively knew that the 5th man was my boss. And I was like the scullery maid of this house, or, the housekeeper, or whatever you want to, I don't know what it was called at that time. Scullery maid is what always comes to mind when I think of it. So anyways, it was like a wooden spoon. And the whole thing was very upsetting. And it was like being there again. It was like my whole energy experienced it again, because I was sobbing by the time I was there. And I came out of the meditation, I was quite shaken. And intuitively, I was told to use the Haponopono. So I started using the Haponopono.
Well, let's explain what it is. What is Haponopono?
So the Haponopono is basically, it's a forgiveness mantra originally from the Huna tradition. Now there's been some modifications to it, depending on the tradition that you're following and stuff in North America. So they don't really like the way we do it, but you know, I think that the energy of it changes. So it's an ancient practice, but the energy of the earth has changed a fair bit. And so when you're tuning into the Haponopono energy, you're tuning into that consciousness of forgiveness. Okay. The original one, it was tuning into universal love. But, you know, for people, sometimes that universal love piece is a little bit harder to tap into. So it's 4 phrases, and I'll explain why. It's 4 phrases. Basically, when you do it, you're using it as a mantra. And you can actually feel the energy block in your body release as you do it. So let's do one just so that you get a feel for it.
Yes,
okay, people can do it at home.
Good.
So basically what I want you to do is I want you to go to a happy place right now. Just close your eyes and think of just a happy place. Something that you're really relaxed. I just want you to take 3 big deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. All right. So now what I want you to do is I want you to do a little body scan, looking for areas of tension in your body. I just want you to get a baseline for when you're relaxed. Okay. So I will say here before we get into this that my version of the Haponopono, I do it a little bit differently. So those of you that are watching, it will be different from the original. Okay. So now what I want you to do is I want you to picture somebody in your life that you need to forgive. I want you to picture their face. Now I want you to scan your body again. And I want you to notice the changes. Where are those areas of tension that you're feeling? So now what I'm going to have you do is continue to picture their face, and I'm going to have you just repeat after me. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the 4 phrases, and we're going to do them in sets of 3. Okay? So picturing their face and repeating after me, please. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I forgive you.
I forgive you.
Forgive you.
I love you.
I love you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I forgive you.
I forgive
I
you.
forgive you.
I love you.
I love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I forgive you.
I forgive
I
you.
forgive you.
I love you.
I love you.
I love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, and we'll just do one more round. I just want to make sure that you're going to be able to feel the difference, okay? Continue picturing their face. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I forgive you.
I forgive
I
you.
forgive you.
I love you.
I love you.
I love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I forgive you.
I forgive you.
I love you.
I love
I
you.
love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I forgive you.
I forgive
I
you.
forgive you.
I love you.
I love you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I want you to do a body scan now while you're picturing them, checking in to see those spots that were tense before. If they started at a level of 10, for instance, what would you say those spots are at now?
You're asking?
I'm asking you to look into it now. So yes, you can open your eyes now. So how did you find that? Did you find there was a difference?
I did this with the cancer, like, because I was going to do that today anyway. So there was really no face. It was just a tumor, which is what I had had.
Yep.
So it was like just a mass, a dark mass of blood, red. And I felt like a tightness in my throat. And when I was doing it, it was still tight. It loosened up. But what was interesting, you know, the feeling when you have like a Vicks vapor rub or like a cough candy menthol, it felt like a menthol feeling in my throat after.
Yeah.
Not sure what that means, but that's how it felt.
Well, when you're having menthol, it's clearing stuff, right? It's clearing congestion. And so that's, I think, what was happening for you was that you were clearing that congestion. Now, there's still some more. I feel like as though for you, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it was a little bit lower and it's kind of moved up a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that what it feels like? It was like down here and it's
it was
up
here. Yes, it was lower and it's here now, but now it's like a cooler. It's still there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can remove that, but it is.
Well, we can, but it depends what time you want to do here.
No. We'll keep going. Maybe after we can do a little removal. That would be great. Alysha, how about you?
Yeah, no, that was, I mean, I've heard of Haponopono, and so that was really cool just to do now, and definitely felt I have tension in my back, and I feel it
Releasing.
Probably at least half of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was just a very short session, right? So really what you would do if you're really working on something is do it and checking in with yourself in those sets of 3, right? Where am I at now? If I was at 10, I'm at 7, okay, good. And then you do another set, maybe you'll be at 5, another set, maybe down to like 3, and then maybe you'd be released, right? So you do it until it's released. Now that does not mean it's not going to come up, because a lot of our healing is in layers, right? So basically when you do that and you do it in one sitting, you're removing a layer. And it tends to be that as you move further in, those layers tend to be a little bit thinner, kind of like with an onion, right? They're thicker one, harder on the outside, that crunchy layer. And then as you go further in, they're thinner and finer. And that's kind of what happens, in my experience anyway, with this kind of thing. The first one that we do is really tough and people will often cry. That's the other thing. I mean, we're in a situation right now where you guys are probably not wanting to cry. And so that...
I've cried on the podcast. I was starting to feel a little bit emotional. Yeah. Probably I should have let go and just let it happen. But
so tears, also people in our society, they think that tears are a bad thing. It's an energy. It's an
release.
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the big learnings for me, because of course, when I was young, as I mentioned, I was told, you're over emotional, you cry too much or whatever. And as I've come down along the spiritual journey, it's been like, okay, I'm just going to accept that that's who I am, first of all. And second of all, I'm going to allow myself the opportunity to release that energy in whatever way is suitable for me. And so when I get angry, I cry. When I get sad, I cry. When I'm dealing with trauma, I cry. It's who I am, right? And so I just accept that I'm going to do that. And I know now that it's an energy release and it will pass, just as emotions pass, because emotions are physical reaction, right?
Yes.
The part that's uncomfortable is that physical reaction that goes with the thought. That's what creates the feeling in our body.
Right.
So if we can allow that to flush through and be a quiet observer with it, it's much easier to let things flow. But
well, you just answered my final question, was how do you feel we need to learn how to open and tap into the goddess of energy that we all have? because you are definitely the goddess of energy. So it's just about feeling and being open to it and seeing where it takes you.
Absolutely. Yep. Going down that road and just allowing the emotions to flow. That quiet observer.
The quiet, that's perfect. So let's all be quiet observers and see where it takes us. And if our viewers would like to reach out to you to learn more, perhaps have treatment, how can they do that?
twillowlifestyle.ca is the website. I'm also on Facebook. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that I did just start a school as well, the Twillow Lifestyle Academy, because I had a lot of people wanting to learn what I do. And so I've put together a synergy program, and Enter Synergy it's called. And it's basically a program that helps people delve into all of these aspects of raising your vibration and doing the spiritual journey. And so it includes the Reiki, it includes the Aqualead, it includes etheric surgery, which is what I did on your husband that night. And it includes, tapping into your spirit guides and all of that intuitive stuff as well. And so that's my new initiative. So there's also the Twillow Lifestyle Academy that you can find on Google as well.
And I highly recommend that people reach out to you to have a session, even just an initial consultation session, just to sort of get a baseline of where you're at and see what happens. It's just really something else to add to your toolbox of, your goddess toolbox to help you on your journey. Thank you for joining us on Grateful Goddesses, Tanys. We really appreciate it. And just so you know, this rock has cooled off. I'm not sure why, but it's no longer hot. So I guess it helped.
You got what you needed.
I got what I needed. Thank you so much, Tanys.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's quite an honor.
Up next, favorite things. Opening up to happiness and joy.
Welcome everyone to Favorite Things with our guest Tanys Coughlin. And she is a registered Reiki Master, Aqualead Master, Crystal Master, spiritual practitioner, etc. And we loved hearing about all the amazing rituals and ceremonies you do to help people live their best life. And one of the things you helped me with, as we discussed, was cord cutting away from my family home that I grew up in. And of course I had wonderful memories, but I really needed to release in order to live in the present of where I am here in Chicago. One of my favorite things is I'm wearing it. It's a necklace that has the coordinates of Chicago. And I just got it in a store down the street. I was intuitively guided to the store. I say that because they really sell candles. And I was like, I have enough candles, but I decided to walk in and I saw they had a little section of jewelry in the back and I picked it up, put it on, and I was like, this is it. And I wear it because it reminds me of being in the moment of the place where I'm living right now, because this is my journey and I'm meant to be here for whatever reason, which I'm discovering on my goddess journey. But Tanys, thank you for doing that cord cutting and now helping me to feel grounded here in Chicago. So thank you for that. And Alysha, what did you bring as one of your favorite things?
Well, I first want to say I recognize that necklace. Like immediately when I saw you today, I noticed your jewelry and I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. Just absolutely loved it. So I love the fact that that's what it's connected to. So I actually just brought a beautiful piece of rose quartz. And this is funny. The irony behind this, someone, I forget who it was, but it was said that I needed to get some rose quartz. Because Tanys, what is rose quartz? What is it? Is there a protection with rose quartz too? Is there?
It's about love, and love is a very high frequency. So when you raise your frequency, you're coming out of the weeds, right? So if it is about protection, it's about keeping you above the dense energies that are below. But it's also about love, self-love, universal love. Like it's just love. It's the love rock.
Well, it was funny because I was telling my friend who actually is the one who told me about Haponopono. He's the one that would always say this. And then he literally had this piece and just gave it to me. So I see that tying into this episode completely.
Awesome.
And I'm holding mine too.
Mm-hmm. I have some here.
And you have some too. And Tanys actually told me, Alysha, to get four rose quartz and 4
black tourmaline.
black tourmaline, put them together and put them in the four corners of my home, because it will ground and add love to my home, like from the ground up. I guess you could do it in certain rooms as well if you really want to go crazy. Maybe your bedroom or your child's room if the child is driving you nuts. So, Tanys, what did you bring today?
Well, I have a number of things here, but
show us. We want to.
So speaking of jewelry, as you were doing that, I'm like, oh, I should tell my story about this necklace.
Please.
So this is actually a necklace. So it's a tree, which is like my Twillo tree. So I actually have a bit of a personal branding thing. So I have these in all different colors and stuff. But this particular one is very special for me. I found it in my mailbox one day.
No.
It was put there by somebody with an anonymous note, just letting me know how special the energy is that I hold, and that this is a reminder to hold on to that. And it's chakra stones, so it's about balance. And the reason I chose the willow tree as my logo was because the willow has healing properties, and it's also known as the tree of knowledge. And so I bring healing knowledge to individuals, and then my HR company is also Twillo, but it's Twillo Consulting. And so I bring healing knowledge to organizations. And so that's why this one in particular is
beautiful. I noticed that too. So then you saying that you got that, ironically, serendipitously, in your mailbox, and then and then you are now making them.
I'm not making them, but I wear them a lot. So I have all different colors that I wear.
Oh, okay.
And so when I'm out doing networking or at events and stuff, I always have on. So people always know, oh, that must be Tanys. She's wearing the tree. I've actually had people come up to me and say, "You're Tanys. Somebody asked me if I knew you because I was wearing a tree."
I got it.
Yeah. So it's
and what else do you have to share?
Crystal as well.
Oh, I love that. What is that one?
Celestite. And it's all about connecting to angelic energies. So I have it here on my desk because I connect with the angels a lot in the work that I do. And so this one just speaks to me. It's nice and shiny, so it's very, very awake. It's awake and chatty, and it helps me a lot.
That's beautiful.
And you sell stones and gems in your store, right?
I do. Yes, we're just working on getting it all up online. At this point, I do it by you call me on Facebook or FaceTime or whatever, and I do like a virtual tour, and then we.
Oh, okay. That's great. Well, of course, we love all of your wisdom about Reiki, energy healing, crystals, all of the classes that you offer. And thank you for joining us on Grateful Goddesses and on Favorite Things.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Unleashed your inner goddess yet? Thanks for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses. We invite you to visit our website, www.gratefulgoddesses.com, to access today's show notes as well as other helpful resources. Don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, stay strong and empowered to be a grateful goddess.